We're going to work on the second part of section 3.4, the quadratic formula. And this time we're going to work on something that is called the discriminant. So here's my equation. Hopefully by now you have memorized it. And the discriminant, if you look for it, is this part right here. I'm circling in yellow. That's underneath the square root sign. So here are some notes you need to take. If the value inside the square root sign, if the value is greater than 0, you have two real solutions. If the value is equal to 0, you have one real solution. If the value is less than 0, you have two imaginary solutions. So again, write that down. If the discriminant is greater than 0, it has two x-intercepts, which means it's real solutions. It's crossing the x twice. If it is equal to 0, it has one real solution, which means it's sitting on the x-axis. If it is less than 0, then it has two imaginary solutions. Okay, so let's do some practice problems. We are going to do monitoring progress. Let's start with number 7. I'm on page 124 if you want to follow along in your book. Okay, so let's just take the discriminant part, which is b squared minus 4ac. Okay, b here is 8, so 8 squared minus 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is 4. Let's see what this is. This is going to be 64 minus 4 times 4 is 16, times 4 is also 64, which is going to be 0. So it says, find the discriminant. Here's my first answer. Describe the number and type of solutions. So the number, since it's equal to 0, means that it is one real solution. And the type of solution, which means that we still have to solve for x. So now that I have my discriminant, I'm going to finish it. X equals the opposite of b, which is negative 8, plus or minus, I already know what the square root of the discriminant is, which is 0, all over 2a. I'm sorry, a is 4 here. So now we're going to put x equals negative 8 all over 8, which means that it has one real solution and my solution is negative 1. So you have to solve, you have 3 different answers for this one solution. Okay, it has, the discriminant is 0, which means it has one real solution, and the solution is x equals negative 1. Okay, I'm going to clear my screen and let's do number 9. So it's not in standard form. Let's put it in standard form. 5x squared minus 8x plus 13 equals 0. Okay, so let's find the discriminant first. B squared minus 4ac. So b squared is negative 8 minus 4 times a times c. Now we're going to put 64 minus, I can already tell that this is going to be a negative, so it means it's going to have imaginary roots. So 20 times 13 is 260. And 64 minus 260 is equal to negative 196. So since my discriminant is less than 0, so negative 196, since it is less than 0, right? That means that I'm going to have two imaginary solutions. So here's my answer. Negative 196 is the first part. 2 imaginary is my second part. And now I have to find it. So now that we know the discriminant is negative 196, and we have two imaginary numbers as the roots, let's figure out what those imaginary numbers are. So x equals the opposite of b, which is negative a, 8 plus or minus the square root of negative 8 squared minus 4 times 5 times 13 all over 2 times 5. I'm going to bring it over here. X equals 8 plus or minus the square root. We've already figured this out as being negative 196 all over 10. And now we're going to simplify it again. 8 plus or minus, this is 14i all over 10. And last step is to do the triangular simplification. Divide everything by 2, so it's going to be 4x equals 4 plus or minus 7i all over 5. Last part of this is going to be, so here's a summary. This is in your book, super important. There are so many different ways to solve the quadratic equations. You could graph it, we've done that. You can use square roots, we've done that. My favorite F word. You can do factoring. You can do completing the square, which we just covered. And then for today, the quadratic formula. Let's move on to the word problem. Again, I'm on page 126 in your textbook if you want to follow along. So at the top of 126, you'll see that they give you some formulas. So this is a super important formula to know. It's h equals negative 16 t squared plus the velocity plus the initial height. So the initial velocity and the initial height. So this is the formula for an object that is launched or thrown. Okay, so let's see. A juggler tosses a ball in the air, so it's tossed. Leaves the hand at 4 feet above the ground. Oh, 4 feet above the ground. I have a feeling that's going to be my h part here, because that's the initial height. And has the initial velocity of 30 feet per second. I have a feeling that this is going to be, my velocity here for 30t. The juggler catches the ball when it falls back to a height of 3. So that's going to be my height right here. How long is the ball in the air? All right. So now we're going to go through it. Now that we've substituted everything we needed to into this equation, we're now going to solve it. Have it equal 0. 0 equals negative 16 t squared plus 30t plus 1. Now let's use the quadratic formula. There's a, there's b, there's c. X equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So we do our math here. We find out that x equals negative 30 plus or minus the square root of 964 all over negative 32. And when you use a calculator, you will find out that the time is going to be, or the roots, negative 0.033, or the second root is going to be 1.9. And since, remember, I said that time cannot be negative, we're not going to use that. The answer is 1.9 seconds. This question is on your quiz, so make sure that you understand it.